It was the truth he did tell. Well, he went looking for some gold to enrich his life, but he almost ended up with a hairy Bigfoot wife. So if you go out camping, don't go where he did go, or you might just end up like old Albert O. Albert O, Albert, what did you see? Them Sasquatch made you one of the family. Albert O, Albert, what did you say? You're not on this on Sasquatch.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm with Buggs Adamson, and it's December 21st, 2013. My name is Tom Yamarone. I'm an independent Bigfoot researcher from Northern California, and I'm also, this year, the chairman of the board of directors of the Alliance of Independent Bigfoot Researchers. So,
all right,
it's news. Thanks, Buggs. But we're here with Buggs, and he's going to tell us about an encounter, his third encounter on this remote forested property that the family owned up in Mendocino County. And this incident happened in July of 1971.
Well, we were coming in, kind of drove up after work. It was pretty late. We always load up everything, and then that always takes time, and then drive up, and then they'll want to stop here and there and get something to eat and what have you. So it took us a while to get up there, so it was really late in the morning when we got up there. And
like 1 or 2 a.m., 1 a.m.?
Yeah, or maybe even a little later.
Okay.
But we, on the road up above the cabin, as you come down, there was a nice white spot there, and the road into the cabin was washed out. So we had a walk in. So what we did was park in the wide spot there, and then we had about maybe 100, maybe a little over 100-yard walk into the cabin. And actually our road didn't so much as wash out as our bridge washed out, is what happened. I guess a big root ball come down and it tore our bridge up. So we couldn't, that's what we were going to do while we were up there, is rebuild the bridge, which we did. But we're walking in, and this is my brother and his wife and his 2 kids, and my wife, who at the time, who's since passed, and our 2 kids. So we're walking in, and the road on the side there just parallels the creek. It just goes right along the creek, and if the creek makes a bend, the road bends and what have you. But anyway, we were hunting up there the week before, and when we started to come down through where all of our cars were parked, and when we come down, we heard this clinking noise, and we wondered what the heck that was. And we were by the white spot where we parked the cars, and that's where Scott Creek come down, and that little creek from the canyon there, and it joined into this creek. And which, according to Dad, is headwaters of Mill Creek. It's the very headwaters of Mill Creek. And so we seen this darn raccoon. It turned out to be that was making this clinking sound, and he come out of there, and he had an old rusted paint can stuck on his head, and he kept walking into these rocks, and banging and clunking, bang and clanking, and it's kind of comical. It was a little sad in a way, but and he was a big rascal, so we didn't want to just go over there and try to get the can off his head. So anyway, we watched him go by, and when we were hunting that weekend before. So this time we started in with the kids, and it was a real bright moonlight night. I remember, it was, you know, you could see real good. And we started down the road to the cabin, and we could hear this clinking again. we didn't get too far down the road, maybe not even halfway, and we could hear this clinking, and Larry says, "Dang, Buggs," he said, "is that coon again?" And we told the kids to be quiet, be real quiet, and so he said, if that's that dang coon, we better get that can off his head, or he's going to die, So, well, let's see if he comes out again. Maybe we can get it off of him. And I said he probably wore down pretty good by now. He can get it off of him. But anyway, we were sitting there, and you could hear this clink, clunk, clink, and that's another thing I thought about too. Is the creek had an old railroad that was burned down, and that's how they used to get they had an old skunk train that used to take the logs out of there, and they took them right down the creek, and they built the tracks right in the creek. And when the train caught everything on fire, burned the tracks down, those old tracks had dropped down in the creek. And anyway, getting ahead of myself, but I think he was stepping on those on purpose. I think he liked the sound or something. Now that I think back on it, it's like a kid, you step on that, makes a little noise, you step on it again, makes a noise, type thing. But anyway, the clinking kept getting closer, so we're sitting there right on the edge of the creek. We walked right up to the edge, and our wives were on the other side of the road with the other two kids, and they were both sleeping, and they were carrying them. And I had my backpack, and I had my daughter by my hand, and he had his little boy by the hand, and he had a backpack and some stuff too, and we both had a loaded 30-06 in our hands, in our right hand. And this thing kept coming a little bit closer. Then all of a sudden, I was telling you earlier, talking about that, the branches were overgrown on the creek, so you couldn't look down the creek and see anything. It was all overgrown with branches, and they grew straight out over. Some of them were undermined by the creek and starting to fall into the creek, and the rest of them were just growing straight out and up and over the creek. And they were all tan oaks in different sizes. And the next thing you know, this whole mass of brush and trees just swung up and out of the way, and this guy just stepped right out in front of us, kind of like, and then, as he stepped out, he seen us, he just kind of took a little back step, and he stood back there and just kind of let the branches go, and they just slipped down to where they were before he stepped out. And he just stood there in the creek and looked us over, and he had kind of a, "Wow, where'd you guys come from?" look on his face, and like we were looking like that, like outside of being terrified, just kind of, "Where did you come from?" type thing. And we were standing on the edge of the road, and he's standing down in the creek, and we had to look up at this angle to look him in the face. We looked up about like that.
Holy cow.
As he's standing in the creek, and you had to look up at him to look in his face.
Well, you mentioned that he had his arm straight out as he cleared the tan oaks and the foliage back. Before he recognized you, he just was holding that right arm straight out.
Yeah, he just pushed the branches back out, and as he pushed them out, if he hadn't have shoved them up, he'd have knocked my daughter down, maybe me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he'd have knocked us down.
How? Like coming straight out at you?
Yeah, he'd hit us with his arm, with his hand. Because when he reached out, he reached way out on the, come out almost on the side of the road.
Right. So
Although he was standing in the middle of the creek.
But you were that close to, again, I should not answer for you, but because I've heard this story, but tell the viewers how close you were to this huge Bigfoot.
Well, if I was standing right level with his right shoulder as he stands facing me, and my brother was level with his left shoulder, kind of on the left side of his. Wait a minute. It'd be my brother's right side of his left shoulder, and if he'd have put his arms straight out, just standing there and put his arms straight out, my head would have been right here.
I mean, you were feet away from him then. That close.
Yeah, I was just almost, pretty well right in his face, about from me to you.
Wow, so you could have put your arm out and almost touched him.
Yeah. Well, his arms he's got some big old limbs.
I just want to, sorry to interrupt you again, but this all came about because you were stopped and waiting, anticipating a raccoon with a paint can on its head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the kids were quiet and everybody was not making a sound.
Yeah, they weren't making a sound.
But let me then ask you to continue your description. Describe the size of the head, the size of the shoulders, the physique of this creature, from what you could see.
Well, just he was enormous, and he was just enormous. And the first thing you notice when you got him right there and you can see him, and you're half startled and everything, but this thing, he's no animal. He's not an animal.
Right.
And he's not a monster. I mean, the kids were looking right up at him, and they weren't scared. They didn't cry. He's actually kind of looked like my dad in a way. I was going to ask that Tom and them about that too, but near as I could tell, that's he has a real human face.
Were you able to see the face? Did you see the skin this time? Or I know it was just moonlight, but could you tell if it was all hair covered or if there was some?
No, there wasn't a lot of hair on his face per se, but he had kind of whiskers where we have whiskers, but most of the face was pretty bare of hair. And then he had that small cone head. He had immense trapezius muscles. He had huge neck muscles. And then where they come down into his shoulders, he had no neck whatsoever. He had an enormous head, but his head looked small on his body. His body was really big and huge long arms, but his chest, I'd say from here to his backbone from here to his backbone would probably be about that thick through.
Wow.
Maybe about there. I mean, I know that 8mm I had in my backpack wouldn't shoot through him. He was thick, and then his shoulders are just immense, crossed like that.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible.
Huge.
And how did this resolve? So for how long was he standing there in front of you, and then what did he do?
Well, he just kind of stood there. He had that kind of surprised look on his face, and then he looked at me as I was right in front of him, and then he looked over to Larry, and he had, he didn't have a scowl, but he give us a look that he knew we had guns in our hands. He knew that, mean, there ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about
And
that.
but you didn't point them. You didn't bring them into play.
No,
right?
they were still sitting down, and we just had them
Holding them by
in
the
our
stock.
hands.
By the stock.
Yeah, by the stock.
Right.
And then he looked at our wives. He looked at each one of the ladies. Then he looked at each kid. He looked at the little babies, and then he looked at my daughter, and then he looked at my nephew, and then he just figured, well, that's good enough. And then he just turned around, and this was the part that just dumbfounded me, I know, but on our side, the bank was 4, maybe 5 feet at the most, and the other side, it was washed out a little steeper, and maybe 6 foot or 7 foot, and then it just went up this same hill. This is the same hill that were later on down at the cabin is where our spring is at. So it's the same steepness and everything right there. And he stepped up with one step. He stepped clean out of the creek, and 2 more steps, and he disappeared. And another thing, never made a sound. He never even woke the babies up.
Didn't make a sound.
No, moving them trees when he first walked in, he just shoved them up and out of the way. It was kind of a sound, you know. And then as he let them go, and they come down and just went back to where they went, you know, as he stepped out from under them, and but never made a sound.
Didn't hear it breathing. Did you hear it?
No, couldn't hear it breathing. And then, yeah, coming down the canyon the year before that, you could hear him like that. You know, you could just hear him sucking air in and blowing it out, and man, you couldn't. Never made a sound.
Maybe that's.
There was no smell. There was
I was
no
going to ask
smell.
you. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
No smell whatsoever.
No smell.
And I mean, we were right next to him.
Guess you're getting used to my follow-up questions. No smell. And that close. And when he departed, what was the mood? What was the conversation you had with your wives and brother and sister-in-law?
You know, it's funny, Tom, because well, going to the cabin, like Larry says, how about that? I said, yeah, how about that? And then he said, well, yep, Bigfoot's real. There ain't no doubt about it. Bigfoot is real. And then, you know, and I never really, in all the years after that, I never really got to talk to my sister-in-law about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at first when I asked her, what do you think, Renee? And she says, I'm not talking about it. She says, I don't want to talk about it.
Well,
This is a pretty smart lady. She's a RN and everything, you know, but I wish I'd got a chance, you know, later on to talk to her about it, but I missed my chance. And now my brother Larry has passed, and so is Renee, and my ex-wife, and you know, she's gone.
Yeah, you're the sole witness of the children. Do you think the younger ones remember it?
No, they don't. They didn't remember nothing.
Well, you know, what I find fascinating is that it seems to me that this one or the other ones, they know you were there, yet they didn't. Did they ever? I'll ask this as a question. Did they ever menace your cabin? Were you ever bothered while you were staying there?
No.
That's amazing. So that's amazing. That
Yeah, no,
you had all those years.
Yeah,
you know.
they never bothered anyone, and this happened, and then the last incident I had with them, and then the following year they sold it. They sold the place.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and I always wondered. I asked my brothers that too. You think the old man seen him and said, "That's it, let's get out of here" or something? But you know, my dad, he's like, like my brother Harry, he wasn't afraid of nothing. He spent his whole life in the timber and the wilderness and
All that time you put into the
old Wyoming
cabin.
cowboy.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Your dad was an old Wyoming cowboy. I just wanted to stop it. I think that's a good chapter in our discussions, in our recounting. And then chapter 4, for video 4, will be the final incident. And then we can wrap up that. Yeah, of course we'd want to know. I'd want to ask you what your dad thought about all this. I think I have. But anyway, thank you, Buggs. It's a great day out here. We're blessed by a beautiful day, not too cold here in California.
Yeah, no fog. The wind ain't too bad.
No, it's not too bad. I hope it's not too noisy on the camera, but we'll see. So again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we're gonna cut it right here.
Albert, what did you see? Them Sasquatch made you one of the family. Albert, oh Albert, what did you say? You're not only saw Sasquatch, you got carried away. Albert, oh Albert, what did you see? Them Sasquatch made you one of the family. Albert, oh Albert, what do you say? You're not only saw Sasquatch.